Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really foundational, something that, well, it affects just about everything, the power of positive thinking.
Hmm.
And we're not just talking about, that surface level just be happy idea. We mean a mindset that really seems to make a difference in success, relationships, even health, based on what we've looked at.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been digging into some excerpts from the English Speak podcast, which covered this exact topic.
Hmm.
And our mission today really is to get under the hood. What is positive thinking, really? How can you develop it? Why does it actually work?
Right, and maybe find some real examples and strategies you can actually use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's just jump in. When we say positive thinking, what are we actually talking about? What's the core of it?
Well, fundamentally, I think it's about how you approach challenges. It's looking at difficulties with um, a sense of hope, maybe optimism.
Okay, hope and optimism.
Yeah, but it's not about like ignoring the bad stuff. It's more about actively focusing your mind on finding solutions, believing that, things can get better. It's kind of a belief in your own ability to handle things.
And it sounds like a big part of that is the internal chatter, right? The stuff we tell ourselves all day long.
Oh, absolutely. That inner voice, that self-talk, it has this huge impact on how we feel, our emotions. And those emotions, well, they drive what we do, our actions.
So positive thinking is like actively steering that voice.
Precisely. It's about consciously trying to reframe things, like catching that I can't do this thought and shifting it to, okay, how can I try this? Or
Yeah.
maybe changing what if it all goes wrong to what steps can I take to make it go right? It's subtle, maybe, but really powerful.
Yeah, subtle but powerful. And the source material, the English Speak podcast, it highlighted this link between that mindset and actual physical health. Things like lower stress, maybe even a better immune system.
Yeah, the research points towards that. And it makes sense intuitively, too, doesn't it? Think about how a good mood can just sort of lift your whole day.
Totally. It sets a different tone.
Yeah.
And the opposite feels true, too, if you start the day negatively.
Right. It really seems like our perspective shapes our experience, Even when things are tough, how you frame it mentally can change how it affects you, physically and mentally.
Okay, but let's tackle a common hangup. This idea that positive thinking means you just, like, stick your head in the sand and pretend everything's rosy when it's clearly not.
Yeah, that's a really important point to clear up. It's definitely not about denying reality or, forcing yourself to feel happy when you're genuinely upset or facing something hard.
So it's not toxic positivity.
Exactly. It's not about suppression. It's about the response. How do you choose to react when things get difficult? Because they will get difficult. That's life, right?
Right. I like that analogy. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Mm.
You see the waves, the challenges, but you focus on riding them out.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the really empowering thing, I think, from the sources is that this surfing ability, this positive response, it's not fixed. It's not just something you have or don't have.
So it's a skill.
It's presented exactly like that, a skill you can actually cultivate. You can, like, train your brain, just like you train a muscle, to default to a more positive, constructive viewpoint over time. It takes practice, though.
Okay, practice. So if it's a skill, how do we practice?
Yeah.
What are some actual concrete things you can do to build that positive thinking muscle?
Well, one strategy that comes up again and again is gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yeah, just intentionally taking time, maybe daily, to notice and appreciate the good things. Big or small, doesn't matter. It's about deliberately shifting your focus.
And the source mentioned gratitude journaling, right? Like just jotting down 3 things each night. Sounds simple, but I guess it adds up.
It's surprisingly effective because you're consistently pointing your brain towards the positive, so it starts to notice those things more automatically. It's like retraining your attention.
Okay, retraining attention. What else?
Another big one is being really mindful of who you spend your time with, your influences.
The whole you are who you hang out with idea.
Yeah,
Makes sense. If you're surrounded by negativity, it's got to be tough to stay positive.
absolutely. The sources highlighted how moods, both good and bad, can be kind of contagious. So surrounding yourself with people who are generally supportive and encouraging, that creates a much better environment for your own positivity to grow.
And maybe limiting time with the drains.
Yeah, consciously limiting exposure to folks who are consistently negative or just draining can make a huge difference. And this applies to information, too, not just people, what news you consume, what you read.
Right, the input matters. Okay, so we've got gratitude, positive influences. What about our own internal world? Those negative thoughts that just pop up.
That's maybe the trickiest part, but essential. The key is not to just accept every negative thought as fact. You have to, like, challenge them.
Challenge them.
When you notice one like, I'm going to fail this, pause. Ask yourself, okay, is this really true? Like 100% sure. What's the evidence? Or is this maybe just, fear talking or an old habit?
That's interesting. So you interrogate the thought instead of just letting it run the show.
Yeah.
And I liked how the source connected this to fear. It's not about not feeling fear.
Exactly. Fear is normal. It's about acknowledging it, seeing it, but not letting it paralyze you. It's choosing to act anyway with the belief that you can cope or even succeed despite the fear.
Let's make this more concrete. Can you think of a time, maybe personally, where consciously applying this stuff really shifted things for you?
Yeah, I remember facing a pretty big setback at work once, and my first instinct was definitely, panic, self-doubt. What does this mean? Am I good enough? All that stuff.
Sure, that's natural.
Right. But I made a very conscious effort to stop that spiral. I forced myself to think about, okay, what have I handled before? What skills do I have? I literally started telling myself, okay, I've gone through tough stuff before. I have the tools to figure this out.
And did that fix the problem?
Well, no, not magically. But it changed me. It gave me the mental space and, honestly, the resilience to actually look for solutions instead of just dwelling on the problem. I saw options I wouldn't have seen otherwise.
That's a great example. It
Yeah.
shifts your energy.
Yeah.
I had something similar when I was learning a new complex skill. I felt totally useless at first. My inner critic was just loud.
Mm-hmm.
But I deliberately started focusing only on the tiny bits I was getting right. Like, okay, I did that part better today. Ignoring the mountain I still had to climb. And that tiny shift kept me going.
Yeah, and that really shows how mindset is like this control panel, right? It affects your feelings and your actions. And the really cool part, linking back to what we said earlier, is neuroplasticity.
Okay, neuroplasticity. Break that down a bit. Sounds technical.
It's actually pretty straightforward. It just means our brains aren't fixed. They can change, adapt, rewire themselves throughout our lives based on our experiences, our thoughts, our actions.
So you can actually change your brain's wiring.
Think of it like paths in a forest. The paths you walk most often become clearer, easier to follow. If you consistently think positive thoughts, practice gratitude, challenge negativity, you're strengthening those positive neural pathways. You're making the positive path clearer and easier for your brain to take.
So you're literally physically training your brain to lean positive. That's
Right, yeah.
wow. Okay.
It takes consistent effort, of course. It's not overnight, but it means change is possible.
All right, but let's be real. This isn't always a walk in the park. What makes it hard? What are the roadblocks people hit when they try to be more positive?
Oh, definitely. One big one is just feeling weird about it at first,
Yeah.
especially if you're used to being hard on yourself, being kind, being encouraging. It can feel unnatural, almost foreign.
Yeah, like you're faking it or something,
Mhm.
not being authentic.
Exactly. Which leads to another hurdle, feeling like you're lying to yourself, especially when things genuinely are difficult. How can I be positive when XYZ is happening? And that's where we have to remember, it's not about denying the difficulty. It's about choosing the most helpful perspective to deal with it. It's a strategic choice, not a denial of facts.
Okay, choosing the helpful perspective, not fabricating reality.
Okay.
And we touched on environment earlier. That seems like a massive obstacle too, if you're swimming in negativity.
It's huge. Constant negative news cycles, toxic people online or offline, even just the curated perfection on social media making you feel bad. It all chips away at a positive mindset. It's like trying to build a sandcastle while the tide's coming in.
So you need to be intentional about your influence.
Definitely. Actively choosing uplifting books, maybe inspiring podcasts, positive conversations. It creates a buffer, a more supportive internal climate. And, sometimes you need more than just self-help. Meaning it's absolutely okay and often really beneficial to get support. Therapists, coaches, mentors, they have tools and perspectives that can really help navigate this, especially if you're dealing with deep-seated negative patterns.
Good point. Okay, let's broaden out. How does this mindset spill over into, say, our relationships with other people?
Well, I think a positive mindset fosters things like forgiveness, understanding, just more openness in relationships. You're coming from a place of believing in the good, generally.
So maybe you're less quick to assume the worst about someone's intentions.
Exactly. You give people the benefit of the doubt more often. And when conflict does arise, which it always does, you're more likely to approach it collaboratively. Like, okay, how can we solve this? Instead of, it's your fault.
That sounds way more productive.
It generally is. And honestly, positive people tend to be more enjoyable to be around, right? That energy is attractive. It lifts others up too.
Yeah, true. It makes interactions feel lighter, more supportive.
Mm-hmm. And even in tough conversations, disagreements, needing to give feedback, having that underlying positive intent helps. The focus shifts from winning or being right to, ideally, understanding and connecting.
So it fosters emotional intelligence in how you handle disagreements.
I think it really does, yeah. Prioritizing the relationship and mutual understanding.
Okay, relationships. What about goals? Getting stuff done, achieving things. How does positive thinking play into that?
Well, a big factor is persistence. Positive thinkers tend not to get completely derailed by failure or setbacks.
They bounce back better.
They seem to, yeah. They're more likely to see failure not as proof they're incapable, but as feedback. Information. Okay, that didn't work. What can I learn? What can I try differently?
That sounds a lot like the growth mindset idea, doesn't it? Believing you can improve through effort.
It's deeply connected. Positive thinking fuels that belief. If you fundamentally believe you can improve and succeed eventually, you're much more likely to put in the effort, especially when it gets hard.
And you see this in successful people, right? Athletes, entrepreneurs. They often talk about overcoming huge obstacles.
Absolutely. Think about the sheer resilience required in those fields. That often comes from a core self-belief and inner voice saying, keep going, you can figure this out, even when everything seems stacked against them.
And what about visualization? People talk about visualizing success. How does that fit in?
Visualization is a really interesting tool here. It's where you actively, vividly imagine yourself succeeding, achieving the goal. You picture the steps, the feeling of accomplishment.
Like a mental dress rehearsal?
Sort of, yeah. And it's not just wishful thinking. Research suggests that visualizing an action can activate similar parts of the brain as actually doing it. It can build confidence, reduce anxiety, and kind of prime your brain for success. Makes it feel more achievable.
So believe it, picture it, achieve it.
Maybe. It certainly seems to help stack the odds in your favor.
Okay, this has been really insightful. As we start to wrap things up, are there any memorable quotes or sayings about positive thinking that really stick with you?
Oh, definitely. I always liked Norman Vincent Peale's, change your thoughts and you change your world. Simple, but profound, isn't it?
It really is. Captures the essence. I'm also partial to Henry Ford's classic. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Ah, yes. That one perfectly highlights how much our beliefs shape our reality, that self-fulfilling prophecy aspect.
Totally. And maybe a practical tip for you listening. Pick one of those quotes or find another that resonates and just write it down. Stick it somewhere you'll see it every day, a little nudge.
That's a great idea. A simple reminder can be surprisingly powerful.
Okay, so if we had to boil it down, what are the main takeaways, the key practical things you can start doing?
All right, based on our sources, let's recap. 1, practice gratitude, like that daily list of 3 things. 2, actively challenge those negative thoughts, question them. 3, be intentional about surrounding yourself with positive people. 4, try visualization, picture your success. 5, be kind to yourself. Self-compassion is key. 6, pay attention to your environment. Choose uplifting books, media, etc. And 7, celebrate the small wins, the progress, not just perfection.
That's a fantastic list, really actionable. And I think it's important to stress again, this isn't about pretending life is easy or challenges don't exist.
Absolutely not. It's about building the inner belief, the confidence that you can handle whatever life throws your way, that you have the resilience, the hope, the tools.
It's about belief in your ability to navigate,
Yeah.
not belief in a perpetually smooth sea.
Well put. And the encouraging thing is, with practice, with support, with these habits, it really can become less of an effort and more just the way you operate.
Yeah.
A way of life.
Your thoughts really do have power. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think back to a challenge you faced recently. Got it. Now, just consider, how might a small shift in your thinking, your perspective, have changed how you experienced that challenge, or maybe even affected the outcome? What might have been different? Something to reflect on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.